Canada won't bow down to a bully, and we won't stand by as tariffs hurt our workers and their families. Trump wants us to lose our cool and to cave in.
We will fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States.
The protracted dispute over dairy trade between the United States and Canada is a deeply rooted and profoundly complex issue, revealing a fundamental clash between two diametrically opposed economic and agricultural philosophies. Welcome viewers to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update.
We will protect our workers and our industries during this difficult period.
Yeah, President Trump is once again vowing new tariffs, this time saying he'll double tariffs on imported steel from 25 to 50%. The president says they'll kick in.
Superficial analysis might focus solely on tariffs and market access. A deeper dive exposes a complex tapestry of conflicting principles, deep-seated frustrations, and a persistent struggle over the interpretation and implementation of the Canada-U.S Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. At its core, this is a narrative of a powerful, export-oriented free market system in the U.S. colliding with Canada's highly regulated, stability-focused system of supply management. The U.S. dairy industry, a global powerhouse of unprecedented scale and efficiency, operates under a model that prioritizes high-volume, free market production. American dairy farmers are incentivized to maximize output, often leveraging significant government subsidies, which inevitably leads to a substantial surplus of milk and dairy products. This surplus makes a robust export strategy not just a goal, but an economic necessity. The U.S. views Canada's protected market, with its close proximity and strong consumer base, as a natural and essential outlet for its products. From this perspective, the substantial tariffs and tight import controls Canada maintains are seen as anachronistic and unfair trade barriers that impede the natural flow of goods and prevent American producers from competing on a level playing field. The official U.S. government position is not to dismantle Canada's supply management system entirely, but to hold Canada accountable to the promises of CUSMA, which are designed to increase market access. However, this formal stance often masks the profound frustration felt by American producers who believe Canada is actively and deliberately subverting the core purpose of the trade deal through clever administrative maneuvers. The fundamental divergence lies in the very structure of each nation's dairy sector. The U.S. model is a surplus-driven system where the goal is to produce as much as possible at the lowest possible cost. This approach requires access to open and competitive international markets to remain economically viable. The massive tariffs Canada imposes, which can exceed 200%, are perceived by American producers as an unjustifiable impediment to fair trade. In stark contrast, Canada's dairy industry is meticulously structured around its supply management system, a policy framework built on the pillars of stability and predictability for its farmers. This system is designed to prevent the market volatility that can devastate agricultural sectors and provides a consistent, profitable income for farmers. It is underpinned by three key mechanisms: production quotas. The Canadian Dairy Commission, CDC, meticulously calculates and sets a national production quota for milk, ensuring that supply is carefully calibrated to meet domestic consumer demand. Individual farmers are assigned a specific portion of this quota, and producing milk beyond this limit results in severe financial penalties, a mechanism that effectively prevents the market from being flooded with excess product and keeps prices stable. Administered pricing. The CDC also sets the price for milk, a mechanism designed to cover farmers' production costs and provide a consistent, profitable income. This system largely insulates Canadian farmers from the unpredictable price fluctuations that characterize open agricultural markets and reduces their reliance on direct government subsidies. Import controls. To protect this carefully balanced system from external pressures, Canada levies prohibitive tariffs on most dairy imports. The only way for foreign products to bypass these tariffs is through tariff rate quotas, TRQs, which are specific, limited access points granted under trade agreements like CUSMA. These TRQs have become the central point of contention in the current dispute. The primary grievance of the U.S. dairy industry isn't the existence of the TRQs themselves, but rather how Canada administers them. CUSMA promised a modest, yet significant opening of the Canadian market to U.S. dairy products, amounting to approximately 5% of Canada's domestic demand. However, U.S. industry leaders, including prominent figures like Shauna Morris of the National Milk Producers Federation, contend that Canada has been playing games with these quotas. The core of the issue lies in the allocation of TRQ licenses. Canada has deliberately chosen to distribute a substantial portion of these licenses to its own domestic dairy processors, such as industry giants like Saputo and Agripur. From the American perspective, this is a profound and unresolvable conflict of interest. These powerful Canadian companies, which have a deeply vested interest in selling their own domestically produced dairy products, have little to no commercial incentive to import U.S. products that would directly compete with their own brands. Consequently, the U.S. alleges that a large volume of the market access promised in CUSMA is being wasted or intentionally left unused, effectively neutering the agreement's intended purpose. This strategic maneuver is seen by American producers as a clever way for Canada to maintain the appearance of compliance while actively undermining the agreement's commercial intent. The U.S. has repeatedly and formally challenged this practice through CUSMA's dispute settlement mechanism, underscoring the deep level of frustration and the perception of bad faith in Canada's actions. This frustration is further compounded by what American industry figures describe as a deliberate misrepresentation of their goals by Canadian officials. Shauna Morris has publicly stated that it is far easier for Canadian leaders to create a boogeyman by claiming the U.S. wants to eliminate supply management entirely. She argues that this narrative is designed to generate public fear and opposition in Canada, distracting from the very specific and legitimate trade concerns surrounding quota allocation and the perceived subversion of CUSMA's terms. The disputes extend beyond TRQs to include Canada's handling of surplus milk components. Due to the nuances of its administered pricing system, Canada sometimes ends up with an excess of skim milk powder. In the past, this surplus was sold on the global market at deeply discounted prices, a practice that the U.S. and other dairy-producing nations have labeled as dumping. This practice undercuts U.S. exports in third-country markets and has been a persistent source of diplomatic friction for years, as American producers feel it distorts the international market. Although CUSMA includes provisions designed to curb this practice, it remains a source of ongoing concern for American producers who feel it continues to negatively impact their global competitiveness. Despite all the political and commercial friction, a paradoxical and significant trend has emerged since CUSMA's implementation. Official trade data from Statistics Canada reveals a dramatic increase in U.S. dairy exports to Canada. In 2024, the value of these imports reached an impressive $897 million, a figure more than 4 times greater than in any year before CUSMA took effect. This suggests that while U.S. producers are deeply frustrated with the nuances of the agreement's implementation, the deal has, in fact, opened up new and substantial trade opportunities. The ongoing disputes, therefore, are not about a total failure of the agreement, but rather a persistent effort by the U.S. to ensure that Canada fully adheres to the terms of the deal to maximize the benefits promised under the new trade relationship. The conflict is less about the existence of trade and more about the ongoing struggle to define its precise terms and enforce the spirit of the agreement, highlighting a fundamental clash of economic and agricultural philosophies that continues to shape the commercial relationship between these two North American neighbors. The U.S. dairy sector's sheer scale, with its massive production capacity and high-volume output, makes it inherently dependent on free and open global markets. This dependence explains the deep-seated frustration with any barrier, perceived or real, that limits access to a key neighboring market. Canada's supply management system, on the other hand, is built on a very different set of values, namely the preservation of small, family-owned farms and the maintenance of a stable domestic food supply, shielded from the wild fluctuations of the global market. This ideological divide is at the heart of every negotiation and dispute. The U.S. views Canada's allocation of TRQ licenses to domestic processors not just as a technical violation of the agreement, but as a symbolic act of protectionism that denies U.S.